Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Yevamot, pages 83 through 89, Pei Gimel through Pei Tet. 83. Hamesachek gafnot al gabe tvuato shel chavero. If a person were to spread out his vine over the grain, the standing grain of his fellow, hareze kidesh v'chea b'achruto. Behold, this causes a problem of kilaim, of kilei hakerem, an admixture in the vineyard, and renders the grain forbidden to derive any benefit from. Asur b'hana'ah. And because you did it to your fellow's property, chayav b'achrioto, you'd have to reimburse him for his loss. So says Rabbi Meir. However, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon Omrim, ein adam oser davar she'no shelo. A person does not have the legal capacity to render something forbidden that doesn't belong to him. So therefore, there's no obligation to reimburse anything because the tvuah, the grain, has not been declared prohibited. This is an interesting idea that there are limits to your ability to act. If it impinges upon the financial well-being of your fellow, maybe your action is null and void. Pei Daled. Amar Rav, lo huzru kesherot linasel psulin. So this is an ongoing controversy, a machloket in the Gemara for several pages, whether or not female kohanot, females born into a kohanic family, are prohibited from getting married to those men who are disqualified from the priesthood, from the kahuna. We know that a male kohen is not allowed to marry someone who is a chalala, who is a female who is disqualified for the priesthood, but does the other way around also hold true? From the woman's perspective, if she's born into a Kohanic family, do those rules also apply to her in her choice of marital partner? And there's a machloket that runs for several pages. Rav's viewpoint is, lo huzharu, they are not so forewarned, that the rulings apply only on the male side, not on the female side, and that is in fact the halacha. Pei 85. Bat Yisrael mo'oreset leLevi. If there was a daughter of Israel who was betrothed to a Levi, muberes mi Levi, or was impregnated by a Levi, shmeres yavam Levi, or is awaiting yibum from a Levi who was the brother of her deceased husband, v'chein bat Levi liYisrael, or similarly the daughter of a Levi who is in such a relationship with Yisrael, lo tochal betruma, shall not eat truma, or for that matter, shall not eat maaser. Now, the question is, why not? Why can't a person with Levitical associations, which are potentially compromised, not eat from Maaser? Isn't it the case that while Truma is only eaten by Kohanim, that Maaser can be eaten by anyone? It's given to the Levi, but can be lawfully consumed by anyone. So the Gemara says, Hamani Rabbi Meir he. It's the viewpoint of Rabbi Meir, the Amar Maserish Nasad Zarim, who said that just as Truma is forbidden to Zarim, to non-Kohanim, so too Maaser is forbidden to Zarim, to non-Levi'im. And so someone's Levitical attachments are in doubt, then they cannot eat Maaser. Pei Vav, Tanu Rabbanan. Truma LeKohen, U'Maaserishan LeLevi, Div Rabbi Akiva. So, Rabbi Akiva says, the standard practice is, Truma is eaten by the Kohen, and Maaserishan is eaten by the Levi. So, Truma is given to the Kohen, and Maaserishan is given to the Levi, and those particular castes of people eat those particular types of food. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, LeKohen. Elazar ben Azariah switches it up a little bit, and says that the Maaserishan could be given to the Kohen. LeKohen v'lo Levi. So the Gemara asks incredulously, only to the Kohen and not to the Levi? How could that be? So Ema af LeKohen. Rather, it means Elazar ben Azariah's viewpoint is that the Maaser Rishon could be given either to the Kohen or the Levi. Either one is a legitimate practice. So why is this true? How could it be that something that belongs to the Leviim are given to Kohanim? Because in 24 passages in the Tanakh, Kohanim are also referred to as Levi'im, which makes sense because they come from the same tribal line. Kohanim are in fact a subset of Levi'im. Pei Zayin, 87. Ha'isha shalach balal m'dinat hayam. If a woman's husband went to the faraway place, u'ba'u v'amru la met ba'alech, and what happened? They came and told her, by the way, your husband died. V'nisat achar kach ba ba'ala, and she got married on the basis of the say-so that her husband was dead. But it turned out they were wrong, and the husband reappeared. Well, what happens now? she has to separate from both the first husband and the second husband. Utzricha get mizeh mizeh requires a bill of divorcement to get from both this one and that one. Havlad mamzer mizeh mizeh. And the child would be a bastard child, a mamzer, from either one. And neither one, husband number one or number two, if they are kohanim, would be allowed to render themselves impure if she were to die. Ve'ein la ketuba, and she has no ketubah payment, lo peirot, and doesn't receive compensation for the fruits that were eaten by the husband in the course of the marriage, v'lo blaot, and no worn out garments, lo mizanot, and not sustenance, lo alzeh v'lo alzeh, not from this one nor from that one. Now, the issue of mamzer from both husbands has to be clarified. Granted, from the second husband, any child would be a mamzer because, in fact, that's an adulterous relationship. We didn't know it when it happened, but we know now that it was an adulterous relationship. But why should a child from the first husband be considered mamzer? The answer is, well, obviously, if the kid was born before he went off to the Medina Hayam, to the faraway place, that kid is fine. It's any kid that might have been born as a result of them interacting after he came back, and that is a punishment midirabanan because they're supposed to get divorced. Peichet. 88. Amar Rabbi Zera. Mitoch chomer shechmart alea besofa, hikalt alea betchilasa. Because of the stringency that you imposed upon her at the end, that's why there was leniency in the beginning. In other words, we allowed a woman to remarry on the basis of the testimony of one person. And normally one person's testimony isn't good enough. And on that basis she married, and it turned out it was wrong. And in the end we force her to divorce from both parties, and we punish her financially, and there's mamzerut issues with the children. So there's very severe consequences for getting it wrong in terms of husband disappears far away and she remarries. So the Gemara asks, well, why not, instead of being lenient at the beginning and strict at the end, just not be lenient in the beginning and not be strict at the end? Apply standard halachic procedures. And the Gemara answers, well, we don't want this woman to be an aguna, the classic aguna, a woman who's chained to a non-existent marriage because the husband is gone, we don't know where he is. And so, in order to avoid a sad story like that of a woman who can't get married, we're willing to be lenient about the evidence, but we also have to be tough in the end if the evidence turned out to be incorrect. Peitet, 89. Tanya. Ezehu meit mitzvah. What is considered a meit mitzvah? Meit mitzvah is a concept that appears all throughout the Shas of a body that has no one to bury it. But how do we define a body with no one to bury it? The halachic relevance of it is because a kohen is supposed to handle a meit mitzvah, but otherwise does not become impure. Well, we need to know where's the exact demarcation of what is considered meit mitzvah and what is not. So, kol shein lo kovrim, whoever has not one to bury it. However, if a person were to scream out and others would hear him say, oh, there's a dead body here, ein zeh met mitzvah. That doesn't count as a met mitzvah. So a kohen who wants to do the right thing and avoid contamination when it's not justified would have to try to figure out, is there someone within earshot? And if there is, then he should not handle the dead body because it in fact would not be a met mitzvah. Everyone have a great week, a good Yom Tov, Chag Shavuot Sameach.